Hello and welcome to the Dotting Center. I'm Rachel and I'm going to show you in this video how to make this dot mandala painting. This is probably an intermediate level project, but don't worry, if you're a beginner you can absolutely give this one a shot. I promise it's not super hard. Now we're going to use stencils from my reversible stencil collection, and basically this just shows how I get an interesting, intricate mandala from the start through to concept and all the way through to resining. I hope you enjoy it. So here is my mandala walla. While we're here, let's just take a second. Would you like to see a video tutorial on any of these paintings? If so, vote now in the comments below. We have paintings 1 through 8 on the mandala walla. Pick your favorite for the next tutorial and I would love to paint it again. No pressure, I'll wait. Which will win for next video tutorial? Vote now. So hey, did you vote? Cool. Now let's get to watching this video because we have a lot to cover. Today we're going to focus on this little painting right here, all in primaries and gold. So strap in, get your paints ready, and let's get to dotting. Here we go. For this project, you'll need some stylus tools. Silicone tools are awesome but optional. And if you want to get some rods, a chalk pencil, this large 11-inch Taurus stencil, and of course this reversible stencil collection from the Dotting Center. This is my favorite thing that I've ever made and offered in my Etsy shop. These are great for the artist who wants a different, intricate mandala every time but doesn't want to have to deal with math. You're welcome. For this project, I'm using one of the designs from the very back page of the booklet, which is this one. It has the Taurus and the daisy. And using these two stencils, I can create that design. So first thing you do is you line up your stencil, which is pretty easy to get center because you can just look at the corners of your stencil and just make sure that there's an equal amount of space on each corner. Then use framing putty and draw one line, skip 3, draw one line, skip 3, and draw another line, skip 3. Okay, so then you flip the stencil over onto the back side, and I want to complete these lines. So I complete this circle, skip the same amount, 3, skip 3 and draw 1, skip 3 and draw 1. So now my Taurus stencil is complete and it matches just like what the book shows. So then I use the daisy stencil, stick it on. Now that's now my top. So you want to make sure that your top center, that's where you start. So that you do the same thing here. You draw one line and skip 3 all the way around. Alright, so then you flip it over, line it up, make sure that your top is at the top, and you complete all of these shapes. Doing the same exact thing. You draw one line, skip 3, draw another line, skip 3, and you'll use your booklet as a guide just to make sure that everything is lining up and looks right. So now I decide to go even further out. This is a 6-inch disc, so I'm going to use my 11-inch Taurus stencil. And at this point, I'm just freestyling with the stencils, just kind of designing as I go. I'm adding to the custom design that was in the booklet. And you're free to do this as well. Like, these stencils are made so that you can be creative and make your own shapes without having to do any crazy math that involves geometry or calculations or anything too involved. It's pretty easy. And that's why I did it. It's a hack and it gets you quickly into the paint, which is where we're at now. But before we get there, I just wanted to show you I did this on paper first just to work out the colors in some colored pencils, just so that I can see what kind of shading I got going on and how I want to approach it. Man, who doesn't love that very first dot? Isn't that so fun? Okay, so one thing I want to mention up front is that I'm not going to exactly tell you which tool to use and where. What I want to do is give you the shapes, and then using the tools that you have, I want you to fill each shape based on what you've got. So different dot artists use different paints. They have a different amount of paint on the end of their tool, and sometimes your dots might look bigger than my dots. So what I want to do here is see if this works. I want to just show you the patterns that I choose for each of these different shapes, and then you create your own patterns using your own tools. You can still use the same patterns that I have, but I want you to get familiar with the tools that you have and fill the shapes based on what you think you can do. Does that make sense? I don't know. But I'm just going to show you this, not show you what tools I have, and expect that you'll be able to duplicate this in your own work at home. I think you can do it. I'm pretty sure. So basically for these 4 central yellow petals, I'm starting with red, transitioning into yellow, and then the very end, the tips of these petals are white. And then these little tiny inside drop shapes, I'm going to use blue, and we're just going to go from there. Okay, so here I'm dropping in some really dark red. Now, those yellow petals are so bright and they kind of, they pop out at you. I want to use something dark so that that goes into the background a bit once it dries. It'll give it a 3D effect if you use darks next to lights, and that's what I'm going for, especially because this is kind of a complex shape. So I want to really delineate those different sections so that it has a 3D effect when it's dry. So here we're walking the dots using 2 different shades of red and just kind of making an arc along that curved section. So right here you see I'm dotting directly on top of that chalk line. One thing you want to make sure of before you do this is that your paint is not transparent or even semi-transparent, because if it is, you just basically lock in that chalk line forever. Your paint should be opaque if it goes over a chalk line, because in the end when you remove the chalk lines, if it's transparent, you'll be able to see it, and that's not a good look. Okay, so as you work your way out from the center, you'll see that each shape gives you a different section that you have to then interpret with different dot patterns. And that is the fun part, because you could give this stencil to 100 different artists and they would use a different dot pattern each time. You would have a completely different design, even though they use the same exact stencils and had the same exact pattern. Their dots would be in a different pattern and it would look completely different. So it's fun to get creative with this and see what kind of shapes and swooshes and drops and all kinds of different patterns that you can use to fill these shapes and make it your own. So for this section, you can see I just used a dark red into a bright red into an orange, light orange, and then into yellow, mixing as I went and filling those shapes in a hot, warm color scheme. So now for the section that surrounds that shape, I'm going to go straight into deep blue. And as I add the blue, just notice how that optical illusion works. So the blue kind of recedes into the background where the reds and the hot, vibrant colors pop out into the foreground, and it kind of gives the illusion of those petals coming out at you. Not in like a creepy way, but in like a, artistic way. I'm going to leave that in. I should edit it out, but yeah, just enjoy that. Okay, so the colors have dried, and I'm seeing that the blue that I used really darkened when it dried. Sometimes you'll find that different paint colors will take on the background color a little bit more than others. And so I added a little bit of white because I wanted that blue to lighten up as it moves out. So I added white to the blue, and that should help when it dries. It'll be a little bit brighter. So now just add white for each row as you go out, and it's going to create a gradient effect. So it's going to look like the dots that are closer to the center are further down, and the dots that are closer to the edge of that shape are going to be brighter and more highlighted, kind of like the petal of a flower. Okay, so my focus got away from me here on the camera, and this is kind of unwatchable footage. So what I'm going to do is speed it up. I think you get the picture as to what's happening here, but you don't want to see my hand the whole time. So I'm going to speed this up. Gah. Gotta fire my cinematographer. Make a note to do that. Okay, so because I just used blue, I'm going to switch to red. And I'm using my silicone tool right here. It's a double-sided silicone and stylus tool, which is nice. It's like getting two tools in one. And I'm just going to do these little intersection points in red. Now, at the time that I painted this, I wasn't yet comfortable with doing drop shapes or swoosh shapes or anything other than just a dot. So if you have that in your arsenal, if you already know how to do that, please add some here. This is the perfect painting for that. And one day I think I'm going to revisit the same pattern and use all of my new dot shapes. But for this video, that's all I knew as of like 6 months ago. Did you hear that? You know what that sound means. It means it's the end of part 1. But don't worry, there's a part 2. And I'll give you a little preview of what happens in part 2 right here. Yeah, I know. It's pretty epic, part 2. So if you want to stay tuned, you're just going to click this little preview thing that's going to happen here, and it'll just take you right to the second half of this video, and we'll just complete it together. I'm so excited, aren't you? Oh, by the way, did I mention there's going to be resin? Oh yeah. Stay tuned, because there will be resin. Check it out.